misdemeanor site.
10-4-12. Welcome to Law and Order Bucks. I'm your host, Bucks County Sheriff Fred Harran. Every corner of Bucks County has a story to tell. Sometimes a story of resilience. Sometimes a story that chills us to the bone. Sometimes a story of government not being able to get out of its own way. Here, the forces of law and order are constantly at work, often behind the scenes. Join us as we delve into the gripping realities of crime and justice in our community. We'll explore the hidden worlds, the difficult decisions, and the unwavering commitment it takes to maintain law and order right here in Bucks County. Hi, I'm Fred Harran, your Bucks County Sheriff, and we're here with episode 6 weeks of Law and Order Bucks, BUX. Very excited. We've got a lot of great episodes still to come. It seems like we're not going to be running out of any topics in the near future, which is great. But today, like every week when I always say, hey, we have a very special guest, we really do have another very special guest. Colleen Christian is the Bucks County Prothonotary.
Bucks County Prothonotary.
And we're so glad. I didn't really know much about the Prothonotary's office, but I'm sure we'll hear a little bit. But we're really today, I met Colleen back in 2021, and we've been good friends since. But what she has done with that office. But today,
thank you.
Again, back in law and order, back in the criminal justice system, back to how the job gets done and making people safe. We're going to talk about an extremely important and serious topic. It's unfortunate that we actually have to talk about this topic. But I'm going to mention some of the things that I did when I first got into law enforcement. And Colleen is taking it to a whole new level here in the courthouse. And that is the very needed but unfortunate subject of protection from abuse orders, known as PFAs. And Colleen's going to go into lots more detail, but from a law enforcement capacity and aspect, these are the orders, and I look at them really as life-saving orders that judges can issue against victims of domestic violence. And let's face it, and I'm sure, Colleen, you have the stats, but and again, forgive me, but most of the victims at least my 39 years, I think I can tell you twice I had a male victim. And most of the victims, unfortunately, are women in these abusive situations. And, I'm not going to apologize, but ladies, my true feeling out of 39 years is that if you're struck once, you'll be struck again. And, I certainly don't recommend breaking up families. That's not what I'm saying, but you don't deserve, no one should be treated that way. Both of you should love each other. People should care for one another, and especially if ever more so in today's world when we're faced with what we're faced with. But the courts do have something in place to protect you. And what's great about PFAs and I'm bringing from a law enforcement perspective. Colleen is going to bring it from the judicial perspective, from the court's perspective. She is a lot more knowledgeable and educated on that than I am. But I'm talking from the street officer. To me, it was always the end all document for an individual, lady, that if she's being abused or hit or mentally or psychologically abused or whatever it might be, and you can get a PFA order, all you have to do then is really, when you call the police, is that the guy violated the order, that he did whatever the order said he couldn't do, and that's really about it. And unfortunately, though, I've had people in my career take advantage of the order and say things that weren't true, but that's why we got judges. And here in Bucks County, and Colleen, you work with them every day.
Every day.
The judges, our judges here in Bucks County are second to none. As for all the judges are phenomenal. And they really get to, I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they got a crystal ball back in their chambers, but they're able to weed through, go through the weeds and come to a conclusion on who's telling the truth. And these are hard decisions. But Colleen, I really want the people to hear today, because I know we're going to have listeners that after they're done with this podcast, they're going to be calling your office. They're going to be following up.
And we want them to.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. but this is a great way to get information to our county residents and anybody else who's listening. So Colleen, can you take us a little bit to the Prothonotary's office? Take us on a trip to the Prothonotary's office, and if somebody wants to get what exactly the PFA does and how they go about getting it.
Sure. So let's go back a little bit in time. When I first became the Prothonotary, I think like most of the people in Bucks County, I wasn't 100% sure what went into the day-to-day. And I like to say, Fred, and as you mentioned, we are good friends. If you are the law, I'm the order. I'm the part that's putting together all of the paperwork. And to give you perspective, last year we opened up, not PFAs, but overall, 163,000 new cases in Bucks County. So every case has what? Usually a defendant and a plaintiff. So that if we double that number, there are a lot of people in Bucks County that have been touched by the Prothonotary's office. So we prepare the paper. We literally get the files together for the judges so that court can happen in an efficient and orderly way. And when I first took office, I knew we administered protection from abuse applications, but I wasn't really sure what that meant until I saw it with my own eyes. And PFA court happens every Wednesday, and the atmosphere on the courtroom floor was really overwhelming to me and unbelievable. First, it's very crowded. You have victims of abuse. You have women who are crying. Sometimes you have children who are running around, children crying. You have the defendant and the victim within feet of each other. And it's a very, very tense environment. And one of the first things I did when I took over this job is I came to you and I said, Fred, I feel like something's going to happen on that floor. Can you help me with the sheriff's deputy? And you did. And it was really, it provided immediately a sense of safety on the floor where we hold PFA court. So I want to thank you for that. And I feel like we have continued as partners like from that point on. And I was just really happy that we could make that change. And we've made a lot of other changes to make PFA court accessible, efficient, maybe a little bit more customer friendly for these victims that are doing very brave things by coming forward. And so every week we are faced with pretty high numbers of PFA cases that we have to prepare on Wednesdays. So do you want me to keep going? You want to jump in?
No, I think, today was obviously Wednesday, and I know we have our staff up on the fifth floor as well, helping out. And it is a sight to be seen up there. The order in the disorder.
Exactly.
It really is. And, you talk about, law and order. You really, your folks just do an amazing job. But, these people, people come into this building. Well, they do come to your building for good stuff too. You're probably the only other thing that's happy in this. So you got sadness in your office, but you also have some great happiness, because we're not going to probably talk about it, but you also issue the passports. Or
we do passports. So we want a lot more people to come for passports than PFAs. But if you need protection, then you come see us as well, because we will give you first priority. Yeah,
no, for sure. But take us through the procedure if you could, Colleen. I think that's important for our folks to know.
Sure. So we are here 5 days a week, unless it's a national holiday, and you'll come in, and I'll tell you a little bit first about what I've seen and kind of how we change things up. So I would come into the office every day, and there are these tables outside of our family office, and the hallway would get pretty crowded, and there would be people writing, and I'd see the same people writing for an hour, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, and they were filling out their PFA applications by hand. So we should probably start with who's eligible to get a PFA, because not everybody can. It's meant for a very specific type of relationship. And most people think of it as a romantic, a spousal situation, but it can also be someone you're related to. So we see women being abused, children being abused, elders being abused. There was a case of brothers abusing each other, but there has to be that type of intimate relationship, and it can be a family relationship as well. So you couldn't come up here, and we've had this happen too. People want to get a PFA, against their coworker or somebody on their street, a neighbor. That's not the way it works. That's not the type of relationship that a protection from abuse order covers.
Yeah, and not to interrupt you, but I think it's important because when I came on in '87, and I forgot what year it stopped, but they used to have like restraining orders for neighbors. That doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist in my office, that's for sure.
I don't think they exist. I don't think restraining orders really exist anymore. So I mean, I have not seen one.
And in fact, when I explain PFAs to people, because that rolls off our tongue and that's the lingo that we're used to in the courthouse. But most people, that doesn't, unless you've had one of these, that doesn't really like register. But if I'll say, when I was growing up, we sometimes called these restraining orders. That does click with people. And it's funny. Sometimes I'll be watching like a cop show on TV and they'll still use the term restraining order, which I think you're right. I think that's kind of, it's not really around anymore, but the PFA is. And so I would be seeing the folks in my hallway and it felt like they were dedicating a whole day to filling out these applications. And it was always crowded out there. And we came in post-COVID, people still didn't really want to be so close to each other. They weren't sure. But in my PFA hallway, it was crowded. Right. And one of the things that I wanted to do was look up the PFA numbers. I'm a numbers person, and I was really interested, like, what exactly are these numbers? Because every Wednesday when we have PFA court, we would be bringing up a stack of like 40 cases to be heard by the judges that day. And that felt high to me. And in fact, I did find out, I have two stats I'm going to throw out to you. So in 2014 to 2021, when we first got elected, PFAs were up 70%. And then jump forward a couple years from 2014 to 2024, now they're up 84%. And not that we're open every day of the week, we're not. But if I spread the number of PFAs that were orders that were given last year, 1,129. I mean, that's pretty high. If I just did simple division, that would
half a day. Yeah.
That would be 3 a day, every day of the year. And, you know, to think that there are 3 families going through crisis on average every day where someone feels they are being threatened, their safety is being threatened, to the point where they come forward and put forth an application, that's a pretty dire number. And the applications themselves are mandated by the state. So it's a very long application and a lot of it is repetitive. And I would see the people in the hallways struggling to fill out these applications. And the first thing that I did was I created the position of PFA administrator in my office because there was so much paper coming in. The stakes felt so high. Lots of times there's weapons involved, like, you know, just somebody's safety. I wanted to be able to sleep at night. And so what we did to address the onslaught was we created this position, PFA administrator. And that person is here, you know, full-time position. She already was here. We just incorporated this responsibility into one position. So we have a point person. We have a point person for legal aid. We have a point person for a woman's place. We have a point person for you know, the pro bono attorneys that we work with, and also that the people who come in that we help, and was very proud of that. And I just felt like there was this tsunami of people needing help. And that was the first way we started to kind of shore up how we were going to address what happens. So step one is you got to come and fill out this application. And people who are in this situation, I don't want to make in any way light of it. The emotional state that they're in somehow correlates to their handwriting. It's pretty darn bad. And maybe it's after filling out page after page.
They got to be, your nerves have got to be shot. You don't know what the judge is going to do. You know, you're literally filling out documents to save your physical well-being and your mental well-being and your children. Is the judge going to side with you? Is the judge going to believe you? Is this guy going to come in with all kinds of crazy, and is he going to get one over on the judge? Not in this county. He's not getting. And you know, Colleen, I've been up there, you know, today as well, and it's not like these judges are in there for 5 minutes.
No,
these cases go on and on.
On and on. So
They
that
take
was,
their time.
and it's a legal document, right? So like they're also not really familiar with all the
Right.
terms and what is being asked, and a lot of it is repetitive. So I started really early on saying, why can't we make this easier for people? Why do they have to do it in a public hallway, which even feels even more exposed?
Right.
Everybody who works at the courthouse knows what the PFA hallway is. You know what I mean? Like, isn't there another way that we can do this? And the answer you often get at the courthouse was, that's how we did it back in the day, so that's how we do it now. But there's a whole new brave world out there. So we started looking at, could we do this PFA application electronically? Could people do it online? And then we wanted to take it even further. Can they do it not just on their home computer or their tablet? Can they even start to fill this thing out on their phone? And can the fields that are repetitive, name, address, defendant, name and address, you know, type of relationship, could that auto-populate to make this go faster? And we found out that we could do it, and we worked very, very hard to do it, and we tried to troubleshoot it from every which way. And so now people can still do it in the hallway if they want. They can also work on it in the privacy of their home if they want, their car if they want, some, you know, a safe place where they feel comfortable, maybe their parents' house, maybe a friend's house. But the very, very important thing, and you can't miss this as you go all through the application, is when you get to the end of this and you submit it, you don't have a PFA. You still need to come to our office. We will print it for you. You need to sign it in front of us, and you still don't have a PFA. Then we need to get you in front of a judge, and the judge will make the decision. But we need it to really try to educate people. Although you can work on this and prepare it before you come to the courthouse, you need to understand that it's not in play. It's not in any way even being considered until you sign in front of a Prothonotary counter person. And so that's a really important thing. But now we launched this, and we have tried to spread the word, and it really is catching on. And we have found a couple of things. People may begin filling it out online, and then they may want to save it, and they have questions, and they come and meet with us and work on it in the hallway. They may fill none of it out. They might just want to do it the old-fashioned way. But one of the things that we thought was important, because I don't have the staff to sit down with everybody that shows up to do this. Like, we can give you the overview and tell you to go work on it, but people get tripped up. And like you said, Fred, it's really emotional. So I reached out to a woman's place that used to come to the courthouse pre-COVID, and I worked with them, and we're now at the point where we have a great partnership, and they are here almost every day of the week, and they will sit at the tables with the folks who need help, and they might continue handwriting it, they might continue typing. We're working on getting a laptop, you know, that can be borrowed from the Prothonotary to work on out in the hallway. But we're working on our internet capabilities in that particular hallway. I know the problem. But we've kind of like pushed the Prothonotary rock forward, you know, 400 years, because now we're using the technology that people use in their everyday lives to make something very painful a little bit easier, right? So we want to provide, we can't ever provide legal advice at the Prothonotary's office. We can provide instruction, and I stress that to my entire staff, and we can provide customer service. And there's no one more in need of service than the folks that show up for the PFAs.
No, you're absolutely right. And you know, we have here in the sheriff's office, we have a unit that's out serving PFAs.
Yes.
Because once the paperwork is all done and signed by a judge and it comes back down to us, you know, a lot of times, and we'll do it. I mean, a lot of times people will take it to their local police department, but sometimes those departments don't have the staffing. And when I first got here, you know, the folks here, we don't do that. You know, we make them go to the police department. And I was very lucky, you know, being in Bensalem, I had a lot of folks, you know, so, you know, we made sure we did it in Bensalem, but there's a lot of departments in Bucks County that don't have the staffing, and it's a civil issue. It's a technical thing, but the police departments don't want to, not all of them want to get involved in it because they just don't have the personnel to do that. So we will serve PFAs. We don't charge you. We will out and we will go as part of our job. I see that as our responsibility, keeping women safe. And the other thing that we do is we'll go because the courts will order, depending on what the courts order, guns being removed.
Exactly.
And we'll go, and it got so bad. You saw your numbers increase. And I'm going to run them now because now I'm interested in my actual hard numbers. But we had to build, and you know, I went to the county and I said, listen, they didn't really want to do it at first, but they really had no choice. We're taking so many guns off of people. We had no room to store them here. And these are guns that eventually get issued back to people when the judges, when their PFA is over and judges will release the guns, I have to give them back. And I have to give them back in the same condition I got them. And if you don't think these gun enthusiasts take pictures of their guns before they turn them in, you're mistaken. You know, they know where every nick, never every scratch is. And if I have anything different, we're responsible. So the county, actually, we have a facility. I'm not going to tell you where. Well, I can tell you, but I'm not going to tell the public
no.
where it is.
I don't need to know anyway.
We have a facility not far from here where we store all the guns off-site, and there's all cameras and alarms and everything. But we have hundreds of guns, and we're constantly doing gun exchanges. And we're not talking about, you know, I'm not a big gun guy, to be honest with you. You know, Second Amendment, I'm all for it. I believe in everybody's rights, but it's just not my thing, and that's okay. But some people come in with 25, 30 weapons. I'm like, what are you doing with all these guns? But not my thing. Their thing, that's fine. I respect that. They're allowed to have it, their thing. But the judge has temporarily taken these guns away, and we're the ones responsible because you can't give them to your relatives. You can only give them to us. You can sell them, or you can give them to a gun store that's going to hold them for you. So it used to be years ago, and the law just changed. It used to be, oh, you can give them to your father, your brother, your son, your cousin, your neighbor. You can't do that anymore. That, you know, the legislators changed that law, and there's only a couple of things you can do with those guns. So that keeps us extremely, extremely busy between serving them, enforcing them, taking the people's guns. It's just, it's a lot of work, but it's part of the job. And, you know, like you said, you know, you pushed the rock 400 years forward, brought the office where it needed to be. And I know you keep doing that as well. And it's great that we have this, you know, relationship and with all,
I agree.
You know, with all the row officers here, the clerk of courts, they're fantastic. You know, the controller's office, recorder, I mean, Linda Bob in her office, I mean, she has helped me with some personal stuff. You know, so all the offices, you know, and I'd like to get everybody on to talk about the different aspects. It's not just law and order, BUX, that's what we're calling the show, but I also want to give people a little inside look at not just, you know, how the sausage is served, but how it's made, you know, inside the offices. And I think your one issue out of many PFAs is just so interesting.
I mean, there's a little bit more information we should tell people about how it works. So you can come up any day of the week. Once you fill out the application and you sign it in front of us, weekdays, we are here from 8 to 2:30. If it's signed by 2:30, you will go before a judge. That's called an ex parte hearing because it's just the person who is bringing the allegations forth. If they are granted a PFA order on that day, it'll be a temporary order, usually for 2 weeks. So then the person has to come back in 2 weeks for PFA court on a Wednesday. And that's when the other person, the defendant, will be there as well. Lots of times they don't show up, but lots of times they do. And that's where that tension, there's fear, there's anger, sometimes there's fights. I mean, that's why it's great that we have the presence of the sheriff up on the floor. So every day you can come here, and as long as you get your application signed by 2:30, you will go before a judge. You won't have a permanent order. That will always happen at a PFA court on Wednesday. So what happens after hours? That's when you go to your local district court, and they will do the same thing. They will give you an emergency hearing, they'll make a determination, and then you will have a temporary order if the judge finds that it's necessary.
I'm glad you brought that up, the temporary orders. I'm glad you brought that up.
There's just a difference. So and sometimes, right, this process, and sometimes my staff finds this a little frustrating. You may have found this as well. This is a hard thing. So sometimes folks will come forward and they will start the process and then they'll withdraw the PFA. maybe out of fear, maybe they've reconciled, but then we'll see them again. And people need to be very careful. Whatever the judge writes on the order, if you have a final PFA, you want to make sure that you follow that as the person being protected, that you don't let the person it's against back into your life, because then your PFA is null and void, and it doesn't serve anyone. But we do see people, you know, some percentage of them struggling with finding the strength, the bravery to go forward with the PFA and kind of stick to it.
It
happens.
Listen, I saw it on the street, you know, being, you know, for the years I was a street cop, and I actually did a lot of domestic violence work. Back in the day, Ben Salem got one of the first VAWA grants, Violence Against Women Act grants, and we had a PFA coordinator in the Ben Salem Police Department. We worked with a Woman's Place and Network of Victims Assistance. We worked with all the organizations, and it is hard, you know, because I use this general because most of the victims are women here.
Right.
You know, he plays head games, and you know, it's not necessarily about the abuse all the time. The abuse is the final act, but it's about the controlling factor. You know, and he convinces her, you know, you'll lose the kids. I'm the only one that can support you, blah, blah, blah. And he's putting all this nonsense, which is not true, because he's a strong woman. And any of the women that get to this point are probably some of the strongest women you've ever seen that can do this. And why is the PFA, you know, so some people, well, why do you got to come back in 2 weeks? Because the order is so strong. You know, it's throwing somebody out of their house, taking their kids, garnishing finances, you know, blah, 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 all these different things. It's some of the strongest court orders you can get. So that's why you need to be heard again and again by the judge. I mean, because unfortunately, there are some cases where people are falsely accused, and those hurt the cases where the women that truly need this order. So these judges have to really weed through it. And my God, our judges are, I mean, they're amazing. The judges, they are. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if I could do it.
I always say I would not want to be on the bench, because it is just, you know, the stories they hear, and what you yourself see out in the street. In the Prothonotary, we see the paper, right? And we do see the people coming in, and we see like the stress and the heartache and all of that. But I don't know, upstairs, it's a whole different story. It's almost like it's on steroids. And I say upstairs because that's where the courtroom is.
Right. That's
where my office is and your office. Two other things I want to highlight about the electronic PFA. You can find it on the Prothonotary website. We have also created a QR code that's posted all throughout the courthouse, and those have been shared with the police chiefs, and we're providing some additional information so that our police officers can have the QR code right in a postcard in their car. So we're getting that together. When you are filling out the PFA online version, as you go through it, it will provide instructions. And when you get to the end, to the point of saving that, the instructions disappear. So there are steps on the online version that help you all the way through. Wow. But there's a safety feature I wanted to bring to your attention. On the application, every page of the application that you are on, there is an emergency exit button right up in the upper right-hand corner. And if your abuser were to walk in on you working on this application, if you hit that button, it takes you to a Google page. And so we tried to think of this from every way we could, because what we didn't want to do is take on a project that might put somebody in additional danger. So we do have that escape button.
Wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
I mean, so what happens to, so if you're on page 3, does it save? When you hit that X, it saves everything.
So it depends. So people can do 2 things. They can go on as a guest, where they do not have to register as a password. But what is incumbent on them then, when they get to the end, they have to print it at home, or they have to print it at the library if they print it somewhere. If you do want to register, we do not keep your username or your password. But if you do have a username and you create the username and password, you can work on it a little bit at a time and save it, send it to us, save it, go back and work on it later.
Oh, nice.
In either case, if you are in an emergency situation and you hit the exit, it just takes you right out. And
Okay.
so if you were registered, it will have saved. If you were working as a guest, you do lose it. But
That's
of course,
great
safety
idea.
is the priority. And then we were thinking about this from like, how can we make PFAs, I don't know, safer isn't the quite the right word, internally. And we came up with the idea of, we do everything electronically in terms of our files, taking things in, everything goes into the computer. If a case has a PFA on it, because the way that our family division is set up, Prothonotary also does divorce, custody, equitable distribution can be attached. And it's all under one umbrella, one case number.
Right.
Now code it with a certain red letter within our system. So when it goes upstairs to the judges and the judges, administrative staff, if they see this particular symbol on this case, they know there was an active PFA at some point, which is it's just another reminder to our judges, making it a little bit easier, because sometimes the files can be like this, that somewhere in the history of this particular case, there was domestic violence. And it's just a way kind of to draw a little bit more attention to the case. And there are so many cases that anything that we can do to make a domestic violence situation stand out, as a Prothonotary,
Right.
we want to do it. So
And-
I'm proud of the staff that we've looked at the situation. We hope from every angle. We are constantly tweaking and refining and trying to make it better. But our intention and our goal is to really serve the people who come before us and do everything we can to also try to keep them safe.
Well, you're doing an amazing job, and I know you're always trying to improve different stuff, and this is such an issue, and your numbers speak volumes, literally. And I can remember being on the street a long time ago, but I remember I made an arrest one time. It was a domestic violence situation. Two cases really stand out to me. I made an arrest one time. It was just a guy and a girl married. I don't think there were kids. There may have been a kid in the house at the time. It was an apartment, and I went in, and she, the call was over radio that she was abused and being hit, and you could see she was hit. Her hair was pulled. There was a clump of hair. So that's enough for 2711, which is the crimes code section for domestic violence for simple assault. It's a misdemeanor crime, but I don't need to swear out a probable cause affidavit. Probably you could take someone into custody based on a couple of things. One is, does it look like there was a struggle? There's a sign of abuse. And did that person say that there was an abuse? Well, in this particular case, the 911 call, and then there was a sign of a struggle, and there was obviously physical marks on her and clumps of hair. So I go to arrest him. That was enough, because sometimes it's a neighbor that calls, and sometimes people don't want their spouse arrested, but that's not necessarily an option at this point. So I go to arrest him, and then she kind of jumped on me and, didn't want him arrested, but he was locked up, blah, blah, blah. She came to the preliminary hearing, basically said, that was wrong. He didn't hit me, blah, blah, blah. The case went through because we had some other things in play at that time. We'd started a new program, and I never saw them again. And it wasn't until years, I'm talking about 8, 9 years later, I did not recognize her at all. I was in a store. I did not. She came up to me and she said, Officer Harran. I'm like, yes. And most of the time, those conversations go well. Okay. They don't go bad. They don't go bad. They normally go well. Even people that I've arrested, I've seen people and they thank me. But she said, I just have to apologize. I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, you don't remember me, do you? I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't. She goes, you arrested my husband for domestic violence. We were living at ABC apartments. And, I told you that in court, I said you lied, that he never assaulted me. And after that, I got help. I saw a counselor, not that there was anything wrong with her. We split, and I found a great man now and have another child. And you literally saved my life. And I have a great life now. That guy was just very bad, but he had me so wrapped up. And I said, it's okay. I said, I started to remember the case a little bit in my head. But that's what happens. And that's happening with the 1,000 police officers in Bucks County,
Yep.
working with your offices and our, not that we work with the judges, we don't work with the judges, but everybody does their role.
Right.
The DA's office here and Women's Place, phenomenal. The Prothonotary, and I really didn't know much about the Prothonotary's office before I met you. To be sorry, Colleen, but perfectly honestly, I just
That is a
didn't know
very common problem in Bucks County.
Well, we need to educate more people. We'll have you back for another show.
I'm trying.
But it was just unbelievable, that she remembered all those years. And the last one, that just two things that stick out of my head. I was probably only a year or two on the street, and I got called also another apartment. Christmas Eve, it was the 24th of December, domestic. And I just remember, I could see it as clear as I'm talking to you now, Colleen, the two kids on the stairs,
Oh, wow.
spindles on the stairs, as daddy, who's a real jerk, threw the Christmas tree through the window. It was like out of a movie.
Wow.
All the presents broken. This is now 10, 11 o'clock at night on the 24th. Santa's supposed to be coming, right?
Yeah.
And mom is crying. She's in her, whatever she was wearing, night clothes, and dad just being a real jerk. And we got him to leave the house that night because unfortunately you're allowed to break property. You're allowed to break your own property. There's no laws against breaking up your own house. As crazy as that sounds, folks, there's no laws about destroying your own television. There is laws about touching your kids and touching your wife, but there's no laws about breaking up your presents for Christmas. God might hold you accountable one day, but the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania does not. And I'll just never forget that, how sad it was. And I remember the union at the time, we were able to get presents and stuff for those kids. Everything was destroyed. I mean, this guy was just a real dope.
I will say, Fred, like when I first started going up to PFA court, I just found it like so incredibly heavy and depressing to what you're mentioning. And my frame of reference has changed a little bit, because now I like to think of it, I don't like to think of it in terms of the sadness. I think of it in terms of the heroes, and the heroes are the women and men standing up for themselves, the elderly who are standing up for themselves, the pro bono lawyers from the Bar Association.
Oh my God.
Represent these people and give up an entire day. Wednesday after Wednesday, you see the same excellent attorneys who I know are really busy, and they're putting the time in to protect the most vulnerable in our county. And you see the Bucks County court staff doing their job. I mean, it's not a light day. This is not easy stuff.
Yeah.
And all of these people are pulling together to make our community better. And so that does give me a lot of pride at this point.
You are so right, and maybe we'll wind it down here.
But I got to tell you about the dogs.
I know you got one more surprises, but you're absolutely right. In this building every day, and listen, I came up here as a police officer to do my business, and then when I became more of an administrator, I would come up to this district attorney's office, and that was probably it for me here. I really did most of my business across the street because that was the courthouse when I was on the street, but the men and women in this building, I got to give a shout out to every single office here. I mean, this building is the definition of bipartisan. I mean, everybody in this building here at 100 North Main, they are working for the public.
I agree with you.
Every single person. I'm talking about from maintenance on up to the president judge, and not that maintenance is lower than the president. That's not what I'm saying here, but the whole gamut of clerks and row officers, and I guess there's no department heads here, but Steve Watson's office, the court administration. I mean, everybody.
We have the law library here.
The law library.
Yeah.
I mean, domestic relations on B1. I mean, I work with those people. I have a whole unit assigned to domestic relations. I mean, those folks there, Lauren does a great job running that crew down there. I mean, this is a well-oiled team at 100 North Main in Doylestown. And I'm gonna wrap my part up with that, but I want Colleen to tell you about something.
All right. So maybe, if Fred and his sheriffs are providing, the muscle and the protection, we have what we call the Prothy Pound that provides the heart. And they are a group of therapy dogs who I got approval to come in, and they come in on PFA day. And, they take different shifts. It's really very funny. I think we've got 7 in the pound now. At one point we had a little bit more. dogs move. We actually had to fire a dog. I never thought I'd see the day that had to happen. He was just a little too young and needed to mature a little bit. But to see children, smile when a therapy dog goes up to them on the floor at PFA court, or to see somebody visually stressed and then you just see that stress come down when they spend a little bit of time with the dog, because there's lots of waiting in PFA court. It really does just, it brings out a softer side, a more compassionate side of humanity. And, I think we need both, right? Like the scales of justice have to be balanced, and the dogs bring in a little bit of the humanity and the fun and can bring a smile out. So we are never going to get rid of them.
Colleen, I don't know. I just had this thought. You might have been doing it already. I have no idea, but I'm going to make this pledge to you right now, a commitment. If you can design it and figure it out, I will get you the funding. Maybe somebody on this show is listening, wants to sponsor this. If it's a business, we can get their business on it. But how about a stuffed animal, the Prophy pound, and you give it out to the kids that have come with their moms?
We would love to do that.
So if you could design the name and a dog, nothing huge because money, but I will get you, our group will get you the money, and we'll buy these dogs for the Prothonotary's office.
All right. Let's work on that together. And
let's do it. Well, we just started. I didn't announce it yet.
And Emma involved too, because the kids love them also. So
well, maybe we'll do it a joint canine Prophy thing. So we just started a nonprofit here. We have our IRS number and everything. So I think we'll be able to do that. So I like that idea. And your office could give it out to the kids and things like that.
That would be great, Fred. Let's try to get that done.
Well, as we sign off with my good friend, Prothonotary Colleen Christian, I just want our guests to stand by, because I'm going to, next couple of episodes, I'm going to tell you a little story, and every story is going to lead up to the conclusion. But Colleen, I just wanted to thank you so much for today and coming on board. I learned so much again.
My pleasure. And let's get the word out there about, PFAs and protection from abuse. Let's keep people safe.
And you got people here, Colleen Christian, working hard to help you. So everybody here at 100 North Main is working hard to help. Every single office here. So please, folks, if you have any issues, please give us a shout. You can reach out to any elected row officer, on this side or that side of the street. Every single one of the row officers, county commissioners, the whole group of us are here to help you. So please don't forget that. Colleen, thank you so much. But folks, don't leave. I got a quick story. So I'm going to tell you a few minutes of a story right now. And every week it won't take more than a couple weeks to kind of give it a conclusion. And I may have alluded to this in the opening 6 weeks ago, but I guess it was about 15 years ago. I was about 46 years old, and I was going in for my first surgical procedure. I had a hip replacement, not a big deal. And my sister calls me. She lives in Florida, and she said, "Hey, did you have your pre-medical screening at the hospital?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got it this week." She says, "Well, you have to tell them your medical history is unknown." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Mom had this, dad had that." She said, "No, you were adopted." Now, mind you, folks, I'm 46, 47 years old at this point. And I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Yeah, you were adopted. I remember the day they left to pick you up at the hospital and brought you home." I'm like, "I thought this was a joke." She's talking more, and I realized it's not a joke. So my parents are both deceased, and they were then. And my uncle, my father's brother, had the secret, so to speak, and he passed it down to then my sister's husband, and my sister was adopted too. So my brother-in-law, my sister knew I was adopted, but my sister didn't know that she was adopted. Now she's 9 years older than me. Now, we do not have the same biological parents, so this was all discovered. So it's kind of a shocker. So I have a sister, still my sister, obviously, but we're not biologically connected. And she was adopted, and I was adopted 9 years later. Never knew this. So okay, so that's a lot to take in at 46 years old. I went on with the surgery, recovered, and years go by. And my daughter, I guess it may have been 5-6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, something like that. She says to me, and I guess she was 21, maybe 22 at the time. She says, can we do an ancestry thing for the holidays? Just as, a joke, not a joke, but just see what it hits on. I'm like, sure. So I ordered it. It was like buy one, get one free, something like that. And we do an ancestry test, send the kid at home. We swab, send it in, and I get some results. And we'll pick up next week where the results of that and where it took me to this past weekend. And that results was 7 years ago. And this story continues for a couple of years now of what happens and finding out a little bit more about myself. What I think is pretty interesting. Crazy story, folks. Until then, next week, join us for part 2 of Who the Heck is Fred? And until then, thank you for listening. I thank you, Colleen Christian. What an amazing story from the Prothonotary's office and a very serious topic, protection from abuse orders. Please, if you need help, we're here to help you. God bless you and your family. And of course, God bless America. Thank you for joining us as we explore another aspect of law enforcement in Bucks County. To stay up to date on future episodes and gain further insight into the work we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about the Bucks County Sheriff's Office and the services we provide, please visit our website and be sure to download the official Bucks County Sheriff's Office app, available on Google Play and in the App Store. Join us next time for another in-depth look at law and order right here in Bucks County.